You have
I'm
to
gonna
be
give
here
you
for
one of
roll
them
call,
lifeguard
so
chairs.
we have 1 minute.
Is the cameras are all good?
Yeah, we can't do pre-recorded links, so,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, okay. That's weird.
If something happens, we just have to start it up again on
Okay.
here, so.
Yeah, but there was no like asking for whatever the hell I was asking for last time with like the SIM card or whatever.
You see
The SD
Drake's,
card.
No,
you
we
see the
just have to
price
start a new
Drake's looking
meeting.
for?
Oh, okay.
So,
You don't
but-
want, it's a
Alright,
full
that's all I
established
said.
form.
Okay, 7:30.
They go get it?
Just talking to Bill DeFosse, he was
You ready to
thinking
go?
that
Yep.
He might actually get it, yeah.
Okay. Cameras are on, Krista?
Yes,
Are we
I'm sure, it's right here.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see the little lights. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is the July 8th, 2021 meeting of the East Amwell Township Committee. Krista?
In compliance with the Open Publics Meeting Act, this is a regular scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 4th, 2021, with a meeting notice published in the Hunterdon County Democrat issue of January 14th, 2021. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, posted on the bulletin board and township website, and filed in the township clerk's office on June 30th, 2021. Mr. Castellano.
Here.
Mr. Mills.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mr. Sobieski.
Here.
And Mr. Wolf.
Here. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do not have any additions to the agenda.
Perfect. We are going to go a little bit out of our normal order this evening so that we can finish at the beginning of the meeting the items that we need Margaret for, so that she doesn't have to stay for the items we don't need Margaret for. I will start with the announcements. Summer playground will take place at the East Amwell School from 9 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. Monday through Friday from July 5th until July 30th. You can contact Krista, our clerk, for details. The Hunterdon County Division of Parks and Recreation will host the Hunterdon Steel Band on July 8th at the Hunterdon Harmonizers on July 22nd, and Captain Jack, the Billy Joel Tribute Band on August 5th at Deer Path Park from 7 to 9 a.m. The East Amwell Recreation Committee's Friday Night in the Park will be held on July 16th from 5 p.m. until dusk. There will be live music by Crab Daddy. Please join friends and neighbors in the park for some fun, music, games, and food. The staff will be having varied summer hours on Fridays, July 2nd through September 3rd. Please check our website or call the office prior to arriving at the municipal building to make sure that the representative you need to see is in the office. We have special summer hours at our municipal building. On to item 7 of the agenda, the ordinances that we are going to consider for approval this evening. The first ordinance is ordinance number 21-11, which is an ordinance to provide for archiving and storage of records for various departments. And we are looking to appropriate $35,000 from our capital improvement fund.
I always forget the open to the public part on your cheat sheet, so.
Do you read, do we do that first?
Yes.
Okay. I'm lost without the cheat sheet. Okay, could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone wish to discuss ordinance 21-11? Francis?
Francis Gaffney, 123 Wurtsville Road, Gringos. Archiving can mean a bunch of different things, locations, media. Are you digitizing the township records? Are you moving them off-site? Could you please give some information on what this $35,000 is going to accomplish? And I know years ago, Margaret, you'd remember where we talked to the county about having them scan and digitize, and, you know, they didn't want to let the records out of the building. But archiving, you know, there are times that people want to come and go through older historical records, meeting books, things like that, which are quite different from the financial records you've got to keep, personnel records or other things like that. So if you could clarify what this is all about.
I can do that. So basically, this is digitizing our records, and any records will go into, basically archiving them, meaning it would go to shred and get approved by the state. So they'll become digitized. All our records are becoming digitized.
And this is being done by a vendor.
Yes, it is.
Normally, when you are archiving or digitizing legal records, there is a quality control step to make sure that what you've digitized is readable, accessible, things like that,
It
and
has to go
accurate.
through a quality control. It is going through that. They have those standards in place.
Do you have any information on what those standards are?
I can get you information on the company if you like in the process.
Okay, and then once you've digitized everything, where will it reside and how will it be accessible to the public?
You would, it's like an OPA request. You would submit an OPA request, and we would send you the link to the files.
So you could tiptoe through the files or only to what you specifically asked for?
What you specifically asked for.
So is there an index that's going to be created so that you know that file F1 5075 relates to the Township Committee meeting of July 8th? Because, you know, where's the best place to hide a
At
book?
this time, we're
Is
only
in a
doing
bookhouse.
our block and lots. We haven't done any minute books yet. We haven't gotten that far. Right now, it's just the constructions, Board of Health, Planning Board.
Okay, well, that's a lot of information and a lot of records, that it's one thing to digitize them and make them more accessible has been discussed in the past, but digitizing them, assuming or taking somebody's word that it's all fine, trust me, and then shredding it,
This is our second part of it. We've already done a majority of it.
okay, and what did you do before? What did you
We
shred?
did a majority of the construction files. They were mixed with Planning Board, Board of Health, everything was mixed together.
And are those records still here, or did you
They were
shred 'em?
archived with the state, so they were shredded.
So, well, there's a difference between archiving with the state
They were
and
approved
shredding.
by the state to archive, to shred.
Okay, so the documentation describing what it was that you were asking them to shred is available?
Yes.
Okay. Be interesting to see that, since that's an example of what you have, and to pop in and take a look at some of these things. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to discuss 21-11? Seeing no one else coming forward, a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-11?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I got a quick question. Do you know what the software program is?
Phobionics.
Phobionics. Okay, I'm not familiar. But where I work, they just switched over to Laserfish or something like that.
That's the,
probably similar.
that's the niche, laser niche.
Oh, maybe
It's
that's what
part
it
of the software.
is. Okay, so that's part. Okay. Yeah, from what I understand, it's a pretty easily have a couple thing. Like you can just print a manifest of what we have like pretty easily. So just throwing that out there. That's it.
There are really two reasons why we were undertaking this expense. One, if you ever visited our basement, it's a fire trap, and having all these paper records And the only place these records existed were on paper in the basement. If this building ever burned down, we would lose decades of information. This probably should have been done years ago, but we're doing it now. Second, the expectation is that this will save us over time significant costs, because when we get OPRA requests, it will be much easier and much more efficient to fulfill the OPRA requests than having to go down into the basement and dig through boxes that have been piled on top of piles on top of piles in no particular order for decades. So we believe that in the long run, we will save money, and we really can't run the risk that if there's a fire in the building, we lose all of our historical records. So it is a fair amount of money to spend, and we did go out and get estimates. This wasn't a, we picked the first vendor, and the decision was made last year, I guess it was, to start part one, and this is now part two. Okay.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
The next ordinance tonight is at Ordinance 21-12. It's to appropriate $65,000 from our capital improvement fund to purchase a Brush Bandit wood chipper. As I mentioned at the last meeting, our existing wood chipper is from the 80s. It is on its last leg. In East Amwell, we have to have a wood chipper, and so we are purchasing this wood chipper. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to discuss ordinance 21-12? Seeing no one coming forward, could I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-12?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I like the name. Brush Bandit Intimidator.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
Next, we have ordinance 21-13, which is to provide for leveling and subgrade reconstruction of various roads in the township. We're looking to appropriate $100,000 from the capital improvement fund, and this is to do capital improvements to our roads, mainly pertaining to drainage. Can I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to discuss 21-13? Seeing no one coming forward, could I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-13?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
Okay, next we have ordinance 21-14, which is to provide for leveling, subgrade reconstruction, and surface treatments of various township roads. We're appropriating $150,000 from our capital improvement fund. In layman's terms, this is for our chip seal program, our ongoing chip seal program. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to discuss 21-14? Seeing no one coming forward, could I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have, next on the agenda is ordinance 21-15.
No, you have to motion to adopt
Oh, I'm-
that.
I'm really trying to get through these. Could I have a motion to adopt 21-14?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
Questions or comments?
Okay. Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
All right, on to 21-15, which is an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of East Amwell, Chapter 106, Parks and Recreation Facilities, and the Chapter 75 fees. We discussed this in detail at our last Township Committee meeting. It is to make some cleanup changes to our ordinance pertaining to Clausen Park. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to discuss 21-15? Seeing no one from the public coming forward, could I have a motion to close?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-15?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
Okay, last, in terms of the ordinances tonight, is ordinance 21-16. This is an ordinance by East Amwell Township prohibiting operation of any class of cannabis business within its geographical boundaries and amending the appropriate section 9286 of our code to reflect this. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to come forward and speak? Tim?
Tim Willie, 25 Bird Lane. So last November, New Jersey voters voted to approve marijuana sales in the state of New Jersey. And after that, the planning board took on a research and exploration into whether that would be something that the planning board would incorporate into our township. We did a lot of research, spent time, had the discussions about it. We agreed that we thought that it was something that would fit into this township. So we sent it to you guys. Now we're making an ordinance that's banning it, and we discussed this last month, and I get it. The state's holding us up. I get that. My problem is that there's nothing on the agenda tonight. There's nothing. When are we going to start reaching out to the public? We're letting time go by, and I think that's going to cost us in the long run. We should be working, excuse me, hate to put this on y'all, but y'all should be working on getting the public's, getting the community's response to this. It's been discussed in planning board meetings for the last 6 months. Anybody that's watched these Zoom meetings or, these little things here knows about it. It's been in the VIP several times. People know about it. I haven't heard anybody complaining. I haven't heard anybody say, I'm asking you guys, do you have people calling you up saying, are you guys crazy thinking about this? Or is there, when are we going to start doing some research? We can lose an opportunity. And I just think that the tax advantage, and Ms. Gable last month, her concern was the advertising. We don't control billboards that are in our township. They're billboards. They're owned by companies. You can't, if they want to put Budweiser on there or Mike's Iced Tea or whatever, we can't stop that. There's no ordinance to stop what somebody puts on a billboard. So, and I don't believe that they're going to be advertising marijuana towards younger generation. I don't think it's going to happen, But, like I've said to everybody that's asked me about this, is I look at this as a liquor store. And I don't think it's going to have a big, huge impact that everybody's all worried about. And I just think that we're wasting time. And I the planning board asked you guys to move this forward. And this is what we got. We have an ordinance banning everything. We spent a lot of time on this, and we had a lot of discussions about it. And I just would appreciate it if you guys would do some research on it and get some feedback. because we could lose an opportunity to make lots of money. Even if it's some money, it's more money than we're making now. We're not taking in, it's gonna be money coming into the township. Whether that reduces people's taxes, whether it buys Jason a new dump truck every 3 years or whatever he needs every 3 years, and we don't have to borrow money to do that, and we can pay it out of the income that we're getting off of a dispensary. I think it would behoove us to think about this seriously and move it forward, and not waste time on it.
I agree with you, Tim. I think August 21st, if I'm not mistaken, is when the regulatory commission is supposed
Yeah,
to
supposed to
weigh
drop
in.
the bomb.
You just can't jump into a game without knowing the rules. Gotta know
John,
what
I
the rules
understand,
are.
and I agree with what's going on with the ordinance. I don't want the township to be bombarded with what we don't want. That's why we're trying to stay on top of it.
So you're talking about like polling the residents?
I mean, that's what we discussed last month. Rick said that, he wanted to reach out to the public and see what the thing is. But it's been out there. The planning board's been discussing it for 6 or 7 months now. If anybody's paying attention, it's in the VIP. I don't know how many copies of this goes out every month, but it's been in there. People know about it. Are they calling you? Are they calling the township to complain? Like, what are we thinking about, even thinking about this? Or are they in agreement with it? There's a month gone by since since we introduced ordinance, 2116, whatever it is. There's a month gone by. August is next month. We're right there. We're right on top of it. Are we losing a prospective customer? Is my concern. And what are the townships around us doing? I don't know. I can't get any feedback from them. Everybody's doing the same thing we're doing, passing this no ordinance. But what do they have in their what do they have on the back burner? The rumors Raritan's got one for it. There's one that's opening up on Route 1 right by the Craig Bridge Mall. Lawrence Township's going for it. So obviously people, they're taking a chance with it. Other townships are taking a chance with it. And, I just hate to see us lose an opportunity to take in money, because this doesn't come along all the time. And the fact of the matter is, if it doesn't work out for us, in 5 years, the planning board passes another ordinance saying it's done, and we let it go. It's that 5-year plan. If it doesn't work out, we can cut it loose. So, thank you guys and lady.
Thanks, Tim.
Ma'am.
Anyone else from the public? Francis?
Still Francis Gavian, 123 Worksville Road. Essentially, I agree with Tim. I don't smoke pot. Hell, I've never been drunk. I'm the control Irish person. But I think we should take action other than to, here is a forbidding ordinance. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. So scheduling some meetings, maybe in August or something, to discuss it and publishing it and different things like that. Even an article in the VIP or on the East Amwell site or something that what you're talking about, then you can get feedback on, well, if you were to, where would you? And that ties into your master plan and the thoughts at least discussed informally of down there by 518 and Orlando's. Or is there some other place on Route 202 or 31 that someone would prefer? You need to have those conversations to have any kind of a meaningful master plan moving forward to give the planning board the tools to do what they need to. And like many other things, I suspect that once this is passed, it goes into a file and nobody thinks about it until later on and the opportunity to see. If you decide you want, it's very confusing, and I've been at the damn meetings as to, if you pass this kind of ordinance, are you locked out forever or 5 years, or are you able to say, hey, pot at X or Y could be a great idea and consistent with our plan, It never hurts to talk. It never hurts to communicate with the public that put you guys up here, and gal, and she's fine, and all of that other stuff. You know, start talking about it and reaching out to the public before the public starts talking about it and reaching out to the public, and you guys might look a little on the late to the party silly side. It is a potential for a significant chunk of change. When it first came up, you know, Mayor Wolf, you were all for it. I know the rules aren't out, and the rules are going to be torturous because it's New Jersey, and that's how they write rules in this state. But we need to start working on it now and form a subcommittee or some folks to work with Tim and some others. You know, we're not gonna grow it, we're not gonna warehouse it because of the smell. That's one thing, to get out there. But this is a blanket ordinance. Well, we're not gonna allow anything. You know, that kind of stuff. I think we're gonna need in the coming years every penny we can get. If not, you know, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. And that's the message to government. And, you know, I wouldn't be shopping there, but I can see that down there by 518, where there's already an approved store and things like that, Pennington said no. I think Hopewell said no. It's not too far from Lambertville. You have a location that could be attractive that is as far away from the village and the people centers as one can get. So, you know, but talk about it. Do something about it. You know, don't just check a box and say, okay, well, we don't have to worry about that deadline, you know, or at least get your opinion as to if there is agreement to start looking at it and talking about it and acting on it or not on the record. That's all I gotta say.
Anyone else from the public like to speak on this topic? Seeing no one else coming forward, could I have a motion to, oh, wait, before we move to close to the public. I have a statement.
Well, are you from someone?
Yes.
Okay.
From a member of the public. This statement is from Christopher Vogel, 5 Manners Road. Mr. Vogel reached out to me to discuss this. He wanted to attend tonight's meeting to express this opinion himself. For certain health reasons, he's not able to attend tonight, so he sent me his comments and asked if I would read them into the record. I'm going to read verbatim what he wrote. I am writing this letter to strongly urge Mayor Wolf and the Township Committee to approve Ordinance 21-16, prohibiting operation of any marijuana business in East Amwell Township. My letter is prompted by the tragic outcomes for people I know whose lives were devastated by their spouse or children becoming addicted to hard drugs following initial experimentation with marijuana. Specifically, a woman in her 20s whose husband overdosed and died 1 month before the birth of their first child. His addiction started with the use of marijuana and soon progressed to heroin. A woman whose husband withdrew large sums of money from his savings account to buy drugs for himself and his friends. He died from an overdose. His addiction started with the use of marijuana. An elderly widow whose middle-aged son is plagued by hallucinogens or hallucinations caused by the use of LSD in high school. He has frequent episodes of uncontrollable rage and violence. Imprisoned multiple times, he is unable to hold a job or live independently and requires extensive medical treatment. Addiction to marijuana led to his use of LSD. I've heard the testimonies of young men in the addiction recovery program at the Colony of Mercy in America's Keswick, a Christian ministry in Whittick, New Jersey, who have overcome their drug addiction and been restored to normal, productive lives. Many of these men said their drug addiction began with the use of marijuana and led to committing crimes to support their habit. I am not a medical doctor, but after 37 years working as a chemist in the military and in the prescription drug and clinical diagnostics industries, I know that all drugs, including marijuana, have both beneficial and detrimental aspects. Although not convinced of the medicinal benefit of some drugs, I'm absolutely certain that no drug should ever be used for recreational purposes. In particular, using marijuana for recreational purposes can lead to addiction to more dangerous drugs, resulting in severe injury to users, destructions of family, and death. East Amwell Township is a wonderful place to live, work, and raise children. My hope is that the Township Committee will prohibit operation of any business that could harm the residents or people visiting the area. The promise of tax revenues from marijuana operations is more than offset by potential for harm. I trust you will make the right decision and approve Ordinance 21-16, Christopher C. Vogel, Jr., 5 Manners Road. I'll give you this, Krista, for the record. Okay, with that, could I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legal notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on June 17th, 2021, and it was posted and available to the public since introduction on June 10th, 2021.
Could I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 21-16?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I gotta say, I share Tim's opinion that we should, you know, if we do end up doing this, it makes more sense to get ahead of it. I was thinking, I guess this is an idea for you guys. Should we maybe put something on the agenda next month, just to, maybe as a placeholder in the meantime, to, you know, if people want to come in and give their thoughts on it, give them a forum? I mean, I know the regs won't be out, but at least, you know, it's a way to start getting feedback beforehand.
I think what we should do is the same thing that we did for the Helistop, for the affordable housing, and for the farm project. We publicized heavily the particular issue, and then we had a special meeting to discuss only that issue. I have been having conversations with residents. A few things have come out of those conversations. First, I think the vast majority of the residents in this township are unaware that this issue is on the table. And while Tim is correct that it's been discussed at the planning board and put in the VIP, the vast majority of the residents in the township don't watch the planning board meetings and don't read the VIP. So I don't think this issue has been out there. And I'm pretty confident in that conclusion just based on the interactions that I've had with the public. So far, the feedback that I've received, and the feedback has really just been from 5 or 6 people, but it's all been, they don't want this in East Amwell. And there are different reasons why people don't want it, but one person said to me, I don't want it because it would make it appear to our youth that the municipality is actually supportive of people using marijuana for recreational purposes. That really got me thinking. I do agree that we need to move on this, that we should not just let it sit out there. But I also agree that, or I also feel that we should not move on this until we're comfortable that we've informed the residents that we're considering it, and that the residents who want to give input have an opportunity to do that, whether in person or in writing. So what I would propose is that we figure out the most cost-effective way to get the message to the residents that we're considering this, get that message to the residents, and then have a special meeting to discuss this. That would be my recommendation. I'd like to make a couple of other points. First of all, what Francis said earlier about my view is incorrect. I never said that I was quote-unquote all for it. What I did point out at several meetings is that it is a potential source of revenue for the township, that we are likely going to have the detriments associated with this, whether or not we have the facility in the township, in that neighboring townships, invariably, one or more of them are going to allow it, so people who want to buy it are going to be passing through East Amwell to get it. So the question is, if we're going to be suffering the detriments, should we be foregoing all of the revenue? That's an economic perspective. My mind tends to gravitate towards economics. But having listened to some of the residents, particularly the resident who made the comment to me about us allowing a facility in the township, sending the wrong message to our youth, has caused me to focus on this from a non-economic perspective, because this issue has an economic component and a non-economic component, and we have to look carefully at both. So I've never said that I was all for it. Second, I don't think that we should necessarily reach for every penny we could get. If reaching for every penny we could get is going to harm our youth or our residents in general, then I don't think we should necessarily be reaching for every penny we could get. You have to weigh the human element against the monetary element. So this is probably one of the most significant, if not the most significant issue this township committee is going to encounter in the next year or two. And we ought not rush to make a decision. I agree with Tim, we ought not drag our feet to make a decision. But my suggestion would be that we figure out how to cost effectively notify the public, set a date for a special meeting, have a special meeting, and then we can resume discussion after we've received input from the public. I will tell you that when the Helistop issue came before us, before we had the public hearing, I'll be honest, the Helistop at the Ridge didn't move me very much at all. I didn't particularly care whether a helicopter flew in or out. But once I heard the input from the roughly 90 people who came to that meeting, many of whom spoke, and those who spoke without exception made really good points, I sat there and said, wow, there is a problem here. It's a big problem, and we need to address it. So I think it's very important to keep an open mind about this issue and to listen to what our residents have to say. We have some really smart people here in East Amwell with very diverse backgrounds who bring a lot to the table, and we ought to encourage them to weigh in on this. Mr. Vogel is one example of that. He's had personal experiences with people who have gone down the wrong path, and it started with recreational use of marijuana. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other people in this township that have useful information to provide. So that's my view on things. But for the moment, we have to decide whether we are going to approve 21-16. So are there any other questions or comments?
I have a couple comments. I think the special meeting is a good start. However, if 5 people email you and 5 people show up at a special meeting, we don't have a large enough representation from the residents. Is there something else that we can do? Can we send surveys out to folks? Now, I know they may not respond, but at least we make more of an effort. Some people work, some people have busy lives. They can't get here. So we're not really going to, we may not get as much information that we're seeking. So I think we need to do more than just set up a special meeting. And I don't know what that is. If it's a survey, we certainly, campaign time, we send 100 letters to people. Well, why can't we send a letter now, or a survey, or something to reach out to people
Because we
and
need to
say,
have that money in our budget to pay for those stamps.
Campaign time, we send 100 letters to people because you have somebody who out of their own pocket
So we
pays
don't-
for those letters.
so.
It's not a
so-
municipal expense.
so-
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm just telling you.
No, I get it.
It's
But
expensive.
We
My
have-
point is,
But we could probably do something like that via Facebook or something like that. Everybody's on Facebook and things of that nature. We can do it to our township one.
My guess is we're going to get more than 5 people at the meeting. We got a lot of people at the farm project meeting. We had probably north of 90 people at the Hellestop meeting. The COA meeting, this room was full. My guess is we're not going to get 5 people at the meeting. You have to be very careful. You can put a resolution on the ballot, but you have to be careful with something like that because people's opinions then could be swayed by whoever wants to spend money to send them flyers, and the people who are going to spend money to send the flyers are going to be the people who want to locate a marijuana facility in East Amwell. So you have to be careful with putting a resolution on the ballot. I find you probably will get a much higher quality input where there are people here with a live discussion or residents like Mr. Vogel who sit down and write a very thoughtful letter. If we have the hearing and only 5 people show up and we get 5 emails so we only hear from 10 people, then it probably means that a lot of the residents are agnostic about this, in which case it's up to us to decide what we want to do. But
Can we start advertising on the website to let people know? We want to know what they have to say.
Absolutely.
look, we can send, what does it cost to send a letter, Kath, if we do our own stuffing and all that, about $1,200? It's about $1,200 to send a letter to the residents if we do all the manual labor ourselves. The stuffing, the stamping, which isn't a massive amount of work, but it is a fair amount.
It would probably be more because we'd be sending it to everyone.
Everybody, as opposed to filtering.
That's true. What were we sending to, 14? So we'd be another 150, so figure another couple hundred, so probably about $1,400. Well, actually, it would be more than that. Yeah, because we filter out more than the one. So it would probably be $1,500, $1,600 to send a letter to every resident. We could do that. I don't know if we have the money in the budget to do that. We're at a razor-thin point to begin with, but we should figure out some way to get the word out to the residents. The VIP alone, and I think the world of the VIP, but it doesn't reach enough residents. That's my impression, because I don't think a lot of people know this issue is before us right now. I don't know if the school can help get the word out. I don't know, but we need to figure out a cost-effective way to get the word out. I mean, Margaret, if we needed to dip into the budget for $1,600 to get this out, is it something that's a problem?
Probably not. For 1,600, we can probably scrape that together.
I mean, scraping it together for this is going to prevent us from scraping it together for other things, but this is pretty important. So if we want to scrape together for this and put together something to send to the residents, we could do that.
I think we need to do our due diligence. I think we need to make every effort to find out what they think.
Look, I could work with Chris to put together a draft. We could circulate it to the committee. It should be something short because people aren't going to read something long, and it should be entirely neutral because we're not looking to sway opinion here. It should just simply be fact specific. This is what the state did.
Do an online version of it too, right? So I think because you're going to have people who don't have Facebook and don't have email, but you're also going to have people who don't check their mail. And
Right.
So I think whatever we do written-wise, we should then either
Put it on the bulletin board,
Facebook,
put it in the
you mentioned the
VIP.
school, I have all the
Put
school
it in the
distribution
school.
lists on the PTO. I mean, we could address this by a few different mediums in order to try to get as much feedback and input as possible.
But do we want to try to get the special meeting first to see what kind of response we get? And if we don't get the great response, then we send the mailer? Or you want to do the mailer
I
first?
think we do both.
The problem is you're not going to get, I don't think, a great response without sending out the mailer. I think if we really want to have a public hearing where we're getting the most response possible, we should send the letter out first.
What did we do for the farm project? It was just published.
We published the crap out of it.
Published it.
Tam delivered letters by hand to people that but to farmers that she
What about Helistop? What did we
emails.
do for Helistop?
That was special.
The Helistop spread like the coronavirus. That took care of itself.
Okay.
And the Sauerland Conservancy weighed in on that, and they have a 5,000 plus person mailing list. So they're and various other nonprofits reached out. So that spread on its own.
I have a feeling this would spread pretty far too.
I think so, because I've gotten quite a few emails in my inbox, not so like personalized. You guys are probably getting them too. They're more like, not spam, but they're just more like generic in nature. So I do think that this would be, people will attend, as well as I do think we'll get a decent response rate, but I just do think we should do both, do in person and online. And I'd be happy to create the survey, publish it, I can do all that stuff, so.
Well, what I'll do is I'll work with Krista to put together the notice. We'll circulate it so that everybody can provide input. Then we'll go ahead and have the envelopes printed. We'll get them stuffed, we'll mail it. We have to pick a date where we can all attend a special meeting, and we'll hold the special meeting. So over the next week or so, we'll put together a draft letter and circulate it, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds good.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, should we shoot for like late August or maybe like?
I'd be careful
too
about
soon?
late August because everybody's on vacation.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to do this, the public hearing, it's probably optimal in early September when people are back from vacation. Because July, the end of July and August are big vacation months.
Maybe September 13th or 14th.
We'll
Monday.
work out a date.
Yeah.
Could I have a motion to approve or a motion to adopt 2116?
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The adoption notice will be published in the July 15th, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
Sorry, Margaret, I told you we'd get you out of here fast. But in any event, we're now back to you. Under special discussions, why don't you take it from here on the audit?
Okay, the audit has been complete for 2020. I did send everybody copies. We have no recommendations, so there's no corrective action plan.
Really?
I mean, really?
Margaret does a good job.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But
Good job, Margaret.
Sorry,
It's everybody.
My back is bothering me.
It's the whole staff.
So, at this point, you're just looking for a motion for us to
I didn't
approve?
accept it, because I probably have to send something down, because this year's the first time we're doing everything electronically with the state, so I probably have to have something to send down to them that memorializes that you've accepted the audit.
Okay, so,
is that a letter? Like a letter or something? Or?
I guess a letter or showing that it was, brought to committee meeting and.
well, we'll just make a motion to approve it, and then
That's
what
Krista
you
can
Let me see
certify.
what you got there.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
Well done.
So, I mean, I did look at the audit. I mean, it's a clean audit.
Good.
And that's good. Clean audits are good. So could I have a motion to approve the 2020 audit?
So moved.
Second. Hey,
Do we want to do a roll call, just to be safe?
Sure. Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Okay, next is the American Recovery Fund. After doing this, I'm more and more confident that I want to retire next year. So done with this.
Well, the American Recovery Fund is the grant money that we're getting, the COVID grant money. That's what Margaret's referring to by the American Recovery Fund.
We actually did receive our first payment. We have our installment, it's in the bank. Now what to do with it? Because they send out quite a bit of paperwork, none of which makes any sense to most people. There's still nothing, the one thing that I did understand now is how we can use it as to offset the revenue deficit that we had. They gave us a spreadsheet, we had to fill it out, it spits out a number. This year, since the budget's adopted, we can anticipate it as miscellaneous revenue not anticipated. It goes into the budget, and it goes into the account, and it laps into surplus at the end of the year. Next year, I would then have to put in a new set of figures. It'll give me another number that we can actually anticipate as a revenue in next year's budget. We can't use it to lower the tax rate, but we can anticipate it as an additional revenue. So I just wanted to bring before the board, if you want me to go ahead with anticipating it as the miscellaneous revenue this year. It's not the full amount, it comes up to about $130,000 that we can anticipate this year. I do have to fill out the form, send it down to the state if that's the route we're going, but I wanted to make sure the whole board was on board with what I wanted to do.
And you have to make that decision now?
Not right this second, but I have to do it soon, you know, move it along. This is, to me, right now, is the cleanest way of doing it. Because a lot of the things that they've told us we can spend the money on doesn't necessarily apply to East Amwell. This is one of the things that I know that will work.
Seems to make a lot of sense, especially based on, you know, the budget this year. I mean, I'm cool with, you know, doing that.
So Margaret, this would be to, I guess, cover the revenue loss that we've,
Yes.
okay.
So
But it doesn't
originally-
cover the full amount, I'm sorry, John, it doesn't cover the full amount?
Yes, it should, because they have a calculation in here. We had to come up with the 3 base years, so we had to put in the years from 19, 18, and 17, and then I put in the audited figures from 20. And they have a calculation with a projected growth figure in there. And it comes up with the figure we're allowed to use.
Because originally we weren't allowed to use it to cover the revenue loss, right? Or am I mistaken?
That's always the way the rule was. The rule has two components to it when it comes to the revenue loss. One is you have to follow some complicated formula to figure out what your revenue loss was. Once you figure out what your revenue loss is, then you can use these government funds up to that amount for, I believe the term is government services. We're waiting for the government to tell us what government services means. One example that they gave in the preamble to the legislation is, I think the term was building roads. I don't know if that would include chip sealing roads or repairing roads, but the way I read the legislation is you have to satisfy 2 prongs. You have to show a deficit, which we did, and then you have to demonstrate that you're using it for quote-unquote government services.
Okay.
Now, apparently, because I've been discussing this with Margaret, there are some folks out there who believe that if you treat it a certain way on your books, you can use it for anything and not just government services, that it's just free cash to use for anything. That's not how I read the legislation, but maybe that's how this will shake out. Who knows? I don't know.
If you do that, you could be in a situation where you have to pay it back.
Right, you can't just start spending this without seeing those regulations, because if you spend it on things that you are not allowed to, you have to pay it back. That would be really ugly. So, it's great that we got the money. Hopefully we'll be able to spend the money at the very least on our roads. If we could spend the money on our roads, that will take care of the grant. We have roads in this township that need to be replaced, that as a practical matter will never be replaced because we'll never be able to afford to replace them and we'll never get a grant to replace them. So this may be an opportunity to deal with at least one of those roads. Maybe more than one. And we're not the only municipality having this problem. I've spoken to the mayor of Raritan Township, and they have the same issue. And these roads are mainly the roads that are in developments. The roads that are in development, you will not get a grant to replace them, but they're falling apart. Sandra Road is falling apart. The road in Harvest Hill is falling apart. The road in what they call Carousel Estates, at least in part, had cracks where literally a dog's foot could go into the crack. That's how wide it was. This may be a way to address those, but we'll have to wait a little bit and see what we can spend the money on.
So I don't know if you want me to go ahead and do this now, or if you want to wait till the next meeting, discuss it, and then give me your answer.
Well, what is the problem with doing it now? Are we,
I don't have that, you know.
it doesn't sound to me like there's any problem.
I don't think there is.
I don't either.
So,
This is kind of what we talked about and
Yeah.
hoped for a few months ago when we had this conversation, so
I would rather, start using it now, because you do have a constraint of how many years you can use it.
yeah.
I'm figuring that we use it this year, we use it for next year's budget and the following year, and that should deplete it. Now, if we come up with something in the meantime that we find is a legitimate expense, and we have the money sitting over here, we can treat it as if it was a grant and do a chapter 159 and actually spend it directly on that expense. But until we get more definitive guidance on exactly, that we can directly spend it on a project, I think this is the best and the cleanest way to do it.
Yeah.
And look, I tend to defer to Margaret on these things because she's done a great job for us.
So we're okay with
Yep.
doing that,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
All right, that's one thing down. Okay. And then I have two resolutions. The first one was to cancel out some reserve accounts that we have in the current fund. This was at the direction of the auditors, just to do some cleanup. These reserves have been here longer than I have. They haven't been used. He said it's fine to get rid of them. So, the first one is to cancel the reserves for the reassessment and Superstorm Sandy and put that back into surplus.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve closing those reserve accounts?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And the next one I have is we finally received the funding for Ridge Road 2 from the DOT, so I can close out that capital ordinance. That's what this is for.
Any questions for Margaret on that? Could I have a motion to close out that account?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay, and then I'm just gonna pass out, since we finally have the budget into the system, summary of where we are. Doesn't need to be discussed, it's just for your information.
And at a 30,000-foot level, are we in good shape?
At this moment.
Okay. That's all we can hope for at this point. Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, I do want to say a few words about the budget. A few residents asked me why I voted against this year's budget, and I thought I would take time at this meeting to explain. I'll start by noting a very important fact. Your municipal taxes constitute approximately 10% of your total property tax bill. Almost 90% of your property tax bill goes to the East Amwell Township School, Hunterdon Central, the county, and certain other uses. Thus, almost 90% of your property tax bill is outside of the control of this township committee. As a practical matter, small increases or decreases in our township budget have a negligible impact on your property tax bill. For example, if your annual property tax bill is $10,000, 10% of that amount, or $1,000, is your municipal taxes. If your municipal taxes increase by 3%, your property tax bill will increase by $30 from $10,000 to $10,030. That said, I believe and have said repeatedly that it's critically important that this township committee strive to offer our residents the best possible service at the lowest possible cost. In other words, we must act in a fiscally responsible manner. With this background in mind, I'll now discuss some of the facts regarding the budget my 4 colleagues on the Township Committee approved last month at our June Township Committee meeting. In January 2018, control of this Township Committee shifted from an organization that had controlled the Township Committee for many years to a group of 4 Republicans consisting of me, Kevin Ostrander, Pete Miller, and Tim Matthews.
Can I make a motion to continue with the agenda here? I don't know where this.
You can, but I'll just read this during the open public session. So
But I don't understand why it's important for you to make this statement now.
Because I'm the mayor,
Well,
and
we
I
know
voted
that.
against the building,
You make
the
that clear.
budget, and the residents. If you don't want me to read it now, John, I'll read it during the open public, and if you interrupt, you'll be violating my First Amendment rights. So you tell me when you want me to do it.
No, you go ahead, Mayor. You like this.
Okay, I'll continue. In January 2018, control of this Township Committee shifted from an organization that had controlled the Township Committee for many years to a group of 4 Republicans consisting of me, Kevin Ostrander, Pete Miller, and Tim Matthews. During our respective campaigns, the 4 of us made certain promises to the residents, including 1, we would run a fiscally responsible government. 2, we would run an open and transparent government that puts the interest of the residents first. And 3, that we would initiate a capital improvement program aimed at fixing our badly neglected roads and replacing our DPW's antiquated equipment. We felt that each of these objectives was critically important. During our first year as a majority, 2018, the 4 of us made very significant cuts in our municipal budget. For example, we eliminated the township administrator position, saving the residents of East Amwell over $70,000, which equaled about 5% of the township's operating budget. We merged our planning board and zoning board of adjustments, saving the township over $20,000, and we eliminated or cut a host of other expenses. With these savings, we did 2 things in 2018. First, we cut the residents' municipal tax bill by 5%. Second, we started the capital improvements program I described earlier. At that time in 2018, Margaret, our CFO, cautioned us about cutting the municipal tax bill by 5%. She was concerned that such a large cut in terms of percentage would someday come back to haunt us, particularly if the township incurred a significant unanticipated expense, or if for some reason, such as a downturn in the economy, our revenue declined. We did not follow Margaret's advice, mainly because one of the 4 of us, I'll call him Mr. Big Splash, felt it was very important that in our first year as a majority, we make a quote-unquote big splash. He believed that a 5% cut in our municipal tax bill would make the 4 of us look really smart. The other 3 of us went along with Mr. Big Splash. I did so out of respect for his seniority and my belief at that time that he understood much better than I did the ramifications of this tax cut. In retrospect, I believe Margaret was right regarding the fiscal prudence, or lack thereof, of the 5% tax cut. I'll explain why shortly. I also now believe that Mr. Big Splash was simply looking to make a big splash politically and neither understood nor particularly cared about the ramifications of this tax cut. I will also point out that while the 5% cut in our municipal taxes seems significant and sounds great in campaign literature, it did not reduce the average resident's overall property taxes by much because, as I noted earlier, our municipal taxes are only 10% of your overall property tax bill. In the next 2 years, 2019 and 2020, we kept our municipal budget flat. No increase or decrease in our municipal taxes. This was very, very hard for 3 reasons. First, in 2018, we cut the costs to the bone. Thus, there wasn't much room to make significant additional cuts. Second, during 2019 and 2020, a number of our costs increased. As you know, prices tend to go up, not go down. Finally, by cutting property taxes by 5% in 2018, we reduced our property tax revenue not only in 2018, but also in future years. To illustrate, if the tax revenue you raise is $100, and you cut that tax revenue in 2018 by 5% to $95, you only have $95 in each year going forward to cover all your expenses. With a budget that's cut to the bone, any future increases in expenses, which invariably will occur, will result in a tax increase. Accordingly, by 2020, I realized that Margaret's advice in 2018 regarding our 5% tax cut, our big splash, likely was right. It was a mistake, and it was done for the wrong reason. Now we get to this year, 2021. Mark Castellano and I, along with Krista and our DPW supervisor, Jason Silverthorne, had several long, very detailed meetings with Margaret during the latter part of 2020 and the early part of 2021, where we went through drafts of the 2021 budget. Additionally, Mark and I had several discussions between ourselves regarding various aspects of the 2021 budget. The initial draft of the 2021 budget, generated, I believe, in early December of 2020, showed an increase in our municipal taxes of over 6%, attributable largely to the decline in revenue resulting from COVID and the federal government's interest rate policies in response to COVID. I discussed this decline in revenue in detail in prior Township Committee meetings. By mid-March of this year, with a great deal of effort, the five of us, Mark, Krista, Jason, Margaret, and me, generated a budget that had a 2.37% tax increase, or an increase of about $18 for the average revenue. I believe the other four of us viewed this as a great accomplishment. We managed to cut the potential tax increase by over 60% in a budget that was bare bones to begin with. And while none of us was happy about a 2.37% increase, or an $18 increase for the year, or about $1.50 per month, none of us viewed it as too onerous. In the course of getting to this point, we upset some of our committees because we had to say no to a number of their funding requests. We also upset certain employees who felt that they were entitled to pay increases greater than the annual 2% cost of living increase that we give our employees. In any event, at that point, we were done with the 2021 budget. All five of us, Margaret, Krista, Jason, Mark, and me, were signed off on it. We did the best we could, and I believe we struck the right balance between, on the one hand, minimizing taxes, and on the other hand, providing important services to our residents and maintaining our infrastructure, particularly our roads. At our April 8th, 2021 Township Committee meeting, my fellow Township Committee member, Tara Ramsey, described quite accurately, in my view, our budget with the 2.37% increase as follows. John and I visited with Margaret for about an hour a few weeks ago when we went through the budget line by line. Thank you again for spending time for us, Margaret. It was time well spent. I think the reality is we have a very lean budget. I think the Township Committee pre-us has done an excellent job of leaning this thing out with Margaret's leadership, of leaning this thing out as best as possible. We did look at the historic year over year and some of the other areas where we've decreased year over year in certain line items to the point where I think, Rick, you said, there's no more else to come out of this budget. The reality is already what you stated. We have revenue we haven't been able to realize because of COVID. That's the reality. It's not just in East Amwell, it's happening elsewhere. So I think you guys have done a great job thus far. This is the reality that we've been handed, and it sounds like we may not be getting the federal aid in time, and we can't use it to lower taxes anyway. Clearly, Tara was in agreement with our very lean budget. This very lean budget was on the agenda for a public hearing and passage at our May Township Committee meeting. It was very important that we pass the budget in May. Margaret made it clear to us that deferring passing the budget beyond the May meeting would have significant adverse ramifications to the township, which I'll discuss later. Did we pass the very lean budget at our May meeting? No, we did not. Sadly, my fellow Township Committee members decided to put politics ahead of fiscal responsibility in the best interest of the residents. they decided that for political reasons, they needed to make another big splash. Here's why. Until recently, my fellow township committee members anticipated that we'd have no trouble in this November's election maintaining our 5-0 control over this township committee. In our past 4 elections, our candidates, including myself, have won by sizable margins. In fact, one of my fellow township committee members believed that our opponents might not even run a candidate in 2021. However, as it turns out, not long before our May Township Committee meeting, our opponents denounced their candidate for Township Committee in this November's election, and she is a very strong candidate. Indeed, she has strong credentials and, best I can tell, may bring a lot to the table. Panicked by the prospect of losing a seat this November, and with the encouragement of one, Chris Sobieski, who earlier this year told me he would not accept any tax increase in the year he was running for re-election, and 2, Mr. Big Splash, who was the former Township Committee member who led the charge in 2018 for the 5% tax cut, my fellow Township Committee members decided that we can't have any tax increase in 2021, not 1 cent. In their view, doing so will give their opponent fodder for this November's campaign, thereby jeopardizing our 5-0 majority. In an effort to make a big splash, my fellow Township Committee members put approval of our budget on hold and began pressuring our CFO to perform budget voodoo in order to avoid any tax increase. Among other things, they wanted to use our already thin surplus to avoid the tax increase. Unable to convince our CFO, our gatekeeper, to eat into our surplus, my fellow Township Committee members decided to make a big splash by taking money from the capital improvements component of our budget. The money needed to keep our roads safe and to ensure that our DPW has the equipment it needs to do its job. Bear in mind, they're doing this to avoid a tax increase that amounts to $18 for the average resident, or $1.50 per month. Not only is this irresponsible, but using the budget to achieve a political objective is the exact tactic we criticized our predecessors for in the 2017 election, the election, as I noted earlier, in which we obtained control over this Township Committee. Moreover, by deferring approval of our budget beyond May, we now cannot chip seal this year 2 roads, Rainbow Hill and Losee, that were targeted to be done this year. As a result, these roads will continue to degrade, perhaps significantly if we have a harsh winter. We also have to defer certain road repairs and the purchase of our chipper. In substance, this is the exact same type of fiscal irresponsibility that led to the collapse of the condominium building in Seaside, Florida. There, to avoid imposing a capital improvement surcharge on residents of that building, which likely would not have been significant if done in increments and started years ago, the building's condo board allowed the building to deteriorate to the point where a portion of the building collapsed. In sum, what I'm witnessing here is the same thing I witnessed in 2018, using our municipal budget to achieve a political objective without regard to the advice of our CFO and without regard to what's in the best interest of our residents. I naively did nothing about that in 2018. I will not repeat that mistake in 2021. I am greatly disappointed and am downright sickened by what's going on here. My colleagues are betting that most residents won't realize, 1, the fiscal irresponsibility of this decision, and 2, that their big splash in 2021 amounts to $18 for the average resident, and thus is more like dropping a pebble in a pond. No doubt my colleagues will plaster this big splash all over Chris's campaign literature this fall. I'm also very concerned that this is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of shenanigans by this Township Committee. You know the old saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Rest assured, however, that I will not give up the promise that I made to the residents of doing everything in my power to shine light on the workings of our Township Committee, expose instances where elected officials attempt to abuse their power to further their own self-interests, and to have a Township Committee that is honest, has integrity, and puts the interest of residents above all else. I anticipate that my fellow Township committee members will make great efforts to cancel me, as was just evidenced a few minutes ago, and I am confident that they will fail miserably in that endeavor. That's why I voted against the 2021 budget. Thank you. Now I will honor John's request and move on.
I have nothing to say, Mr. Mayor, except I will speak for myself. I did not feel comfortable voting for a tax increase in the middle of a pandemic. Some people are not millionaires like you are. I don't care if it's just penny, a dime, or a quarter. Folks work hard for their money, and you have to respect that. I don't care if it's 10% of a budget or 90% of a budget. I represent the people that elected me, and I'm sorry you're a sore loser. You lost 4-1. I've got nothing else to say.
I'm sure if you were on the condo board of the Seaside condo, you'd be making the same speech, and then when the building fell down, what would you be saying? I have the floor.
I don't care if you have the floor. You talk too much.
You know what, John? I have the floor.
You know what?
You don't like what I have to say.
You like to grandstand, Mr. Mayor.
You know, John, when I was supporting you during your campaign, you never made these comments, but now that I'm pointing out the slime.
I had no idea, Mr. Mayor, that you were so egotistical. But that being said, I'd like to make a motion to continue with the agenda.
One of the powers the mayor has in a township form of government is the presiding over the meeting. So the mayor does have the floor as the mayor. You can make a motion in that regard, it can be voted on, but the mayor has the floor as the mayor. And we don't always have to agree, but we should all have remind ourselves of being civil. There is a child in the room.
17 minutes so far.
I have nothing else to say at this point. I've said what I have to say.
I just find it interesting that in that whole speech also, Rick, you did not apologize when I think it was the meeting right before Memorial Day where John read a statement that we all apologized on behalf of the Township Committee for the shenanigans that took place in that meeting and that we were embarrassed on behalf of the Township Committee. And we apologized to the community for that, and you said nothing. And in the past 17 minutes that you've been speaking, you not once apologized for your behavior when Chris did. So I just want that to be on the record that I find that very interesting as well. And I don't want to talk about this anymore. So can we please move on?
My behavior is always focused on the best interest of the residents and pointing out when people on the Township Committee are doing slimy things, and I will never, ever apologize for that behavior.
I think that's pretty telling about your character.
It absolutely is telling about my character. Honesty, integrity, being a good public servant. Yes, it is very telling about my character.
Well, that's your
I
opinion.
wish you shared that character. Okay.
Let's move on.
I think I do, actually, for the record.
I think you do as well.
Thank you, John.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Chris.
Next, we move on to acknowledgements by the mayor. I'd like to do 3 this evening. First, I'd like to acknowledge our township historian, John Allen. When our longtime township historian, Jim Davidson, left, that left a huge void in East Amwell. We all knew that John Allen would be the best candidate to fill Jim's shoes, but John has a very full plate. Fortunately, when I called John and asked him if he would become our municipal historian, he agreed. And he's done a great job since then. When residents or non-residents reach out with questions about the history of East Amwell, John responds very quickly, and even if he doesn't know the answer, he will do the research and respond very quickly. He writes terrific articles in the VIP and is making really great efforts to try to preserve the history of East Amwell. And so I'd like to thank John for all of his efforts. Second, I'd like to thank Carolyn Murphy. This thank you is long overdue, our animal control officer. I got a sense over the last week, a good sense of what she goes through on a daily basis. The incident involved a rabid raccoon. She really puts herself at risk. confronting these animals. And I also see how much she cares for animals. There was a fox that had mange, a baby fox, that could be saved if it were captured and taken to a sanctuary before the mange got too bad. And Carolyn worked tirelessly over the 4th of July holiday trying to trap this fox. She really cares about the animals. So she's a terrific animal control officer, really goes above and beyond the call of duty. In fact, when 2 pigs were found roaming, baby pigs roaming on mountain roads some time ago, Carolyn adopted them and has kept them because she couldn't find a home for them, so they're now her pets. That is someone who truly loves animals. Finally, I'd like to thank the volunteers who work on the VIP. I think most of you know that the VIP is a monthly newsletter that a group of volunteers has put out for decades. They work very hard on the VIP. They don't get paid for doing that. I suspect they probably reach into their own pocket to fund some of this. So I think we owe an acknowledgement and a thank you to the various volunteers who work on the VIP. Those are my acknowledgements for this month. Number 10 is approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the June 10th, 2021 executive session minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, we have the June 10th, 2021 regular minutes. Could I have a motion to approve those?
So, second.
Who first?
I think Mark and then Chris.
And then Chris.
It was a photo finish.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have no special committee reports.
Can I just add something real quick? I
Oh, sure.
sent an email to all of you guys in regards to a volunteer application for JD Grun for the Environmental Commission.
Yep.
Did you guys see that?
Yes.
I asked, usually they come in for an interview. I feel that it's a waste of time because no one really asks them questions. Would you like me to have him come in, or is this something, I mean, we need members on the EC, so
Was this like resume attached to that letter?
I sent you the whole
These are
application.
Yeah, I looked at it. I have no issues with that.
I don't feel a compelling need to appoint him for the environmental, or to interview him for the Environmental Commission. We need members.
Okay,
Do we know if he served on any other committees in the past?
not that I know of.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, that committee's desperate for people, so.
I believe that's a committee that requires the approval of that's appointed by the Township Committee, I think?
I
That's not a
believe-
mayor
No,
appointment. I
it's
think
not,
it's a
I believe
Township
it's
Committee.
Township Committee.
So do we want to appoint them?
Is it? So,
Sure.
Okay.
Motion? No?
Yes, I need a motion.
Could I have a motion to approve his name again,
It's
Krista?
JD Grun.
J.D. Grun. Could I have a motion to approve him to the Environmental Commission?
so moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you, everybody. I'll let Marnie know. She was asking.
Thanks, Jessica, for this.
By the way, I contacted Marnie. She was very much
She's
in
the one
favor.
that,
Yeah, she was very much in favor of appointing him. We don't have any standing committee reports,
No.
so I think we're up to the open to the public. Can I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Francis? By the way, for the first session, we have the 10-minute limit.
I'll be around for the second session. Never stopped me before, and I'm not mayor. Francis Gavigan, 123 Wurtsville Road. Hi, camera. For those of you who would like to see the whole meeting from last month's meeting, I put that on a YouTube channel, and it is available for anybody who wants to know how the voting and other things went. I am not surprised, but I am very disappointed in what was the 17-minute diatribe a few minutes ago. Something that the whole committee doesn't necessarily aware of, and certainly the public, hello public, is that when there was the issue for which John Mill's statement was made, my little cell phone, which records meetings, was still running. So it got the whole embarrassing, at least on sound, issue that was a running thing to, I don't know which one you are, in the terms against you, Chris, and then later against you, John, and other things like that. I will be publishing it, and I will be publishing it probably on the same page with the little segment that of 17-minute subject that is probably much easier to load. This is not fitting behavior. It is something we're going to have to endure, apparently, for another 5 or 6 months. But hopefully, no matter what the election does, will not continue to be on then. And it's not even grade school. It's just plain to take a vote of $18, which was not the way it was characterized, the savings that were in 2018 and 2019 and campaign literature back then, to the horrible tragedy that is going on down there in Florida. You know, that's the ultimate Chicken Little statement. I believe the majority of the people in this room or on that board are aware of the absurdity. You know, last month, all praise was hailed on Les Hamilton, up until which he had been lying less. You know, everybody can get a nickname, and it can be a derogatory one. And it's not professional, it's not adult, but it can certainly be broadcast. And the nice thing about the internet is it crosses state borders, it goes everywhere. I got nothing to lose. Whether you like me or don't like me, things like that, I can be there. You know, I don't have to. I will be supporting Chris Sobieski, not because of $18, but because he's a damn good person who falls over himself to help the public out and has volunteered to be the secretary for the Ringo's Village thing so that they can actually have meetings. Most of the board meetings are canceled around here lately. So, you know, it just is getting old. The fact that a member of the farming community pushed to get an ag advisory meeting held and then was shut down during it, listen for yourselves, and then referring to whining farmers, that also is not mature or adult or professional. If you're ready to change your voter affiliation, it's a real easy thing to do up in Flemington, to go from R to D, because that appears to be the case, or else there's going to be R stands for Rick Wolf. I don't know what it is. As far as boards being all upset about the budgets not being, we wanted to have money. I'm only now on the historical, but there was a necessary annual fee that would be paid for us to have access to it. We didn't have the money. I paid for it. The Historical Society paid for the things to protect and appropriately support the property of the township, which is the quick collection. There are a lot of people who don't run their mouth, but they open their wallet. I can do both. Usually I document it. But enough is enough, and we're not going to take it anymore, and that is the lesson of the 4th of July. We, the people, don't want to hear it and to have psychic revelations of what people is in people's minds or what they interpreted. You only know what you do. I know what I do. I know what I say. Don't always remember it. But I would not have the arrogance to say that I know what you want, John, and I know what you want, Chris or Tara, or things like that. The budget that was going to be approved was not, it was held off for a month, and the sky has not fallen because you listened to the residents of East Amwell, and you should be applauded for that. You know, thank you, Mark. Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris, for having the guts to stand up. Tara, you know, you're classy as ever. Me? You know, I don't give a rat's ass. But, you know, it's if you need to get years of zoomed or close-ups of you at your best and at your worst out on the internet, keep pushing the buttons. You know, don't poke the bear. If you didn't win, smile and say, I didn't win. And if asked by the residents, well, there was a difference of opinion, not a 15-minute reconstruction of, you know, how the original articles of incorporation were done and whenever. Just get about and stay about the business of governing and being nice. I know you've admitted, and it's on the record, Mr. Wolf, that I'm not nice. You didn't quote that when you were going after Tara. You know, but I was here. Others were here. We pay attention, and hopefully the folks that are out there watching this, and maybe the ones that are going to be on the local Facebook and other kind of pages, will pay some attention. But the fact that when 4 out of 5 people take a measured and reasoned approach to act as adults and to say, yes, we have money coming that we can replenish later, but we don't have necessarily now to forestall a permanent $18 or $20, or, and if you got a multi-million-dollar house, probably a hell of a lot more than that increase. You know, just say, we disagreed, I thought this, and that wasn't the way it went. Because when you say too much and you go on, and I'm sure the minute I stop, there's going to be a rebuttal, but the camera still has stuff in it, still has juice. Let it go, you know? Just be an adult. You know, all 4'11" and a quarter inches of me, well, no, 4'11", I did shrink some more. You know, I've been accused by our mayor of being a bully. You were there, Mark, remember that? March of 2019 or 20? You know, I can't bully, but I can be like a terrier nagging and snapping at your heels and aggravate the hell out of you and not really give a damn. You know, yes, the lady that is running on the Democratic side is someone who was, shall we say, energized to become involved last year with some of the shenanigans of last year. You know, I hope, Mark, whatever, you guys do a better job and find some way, whether it's a kill button on the microphone or else, but, you know, you didn't realize that you were signing up for combat duty, did you? If you'd asked me, I would have told you. But at least you have the military training and...
10 seconds.
Okay. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go to Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else from the public? Kathy?
Kathy Wolf, 21 Renderson Road.
So for anybody that doesn't know who I am, I'm Kathy Wolf. I'm Rick's wife. And I don't normally say much at these meetings, but tonight I have something to say. I was gonna say this at the June meeting, but the YouTube feed wasn't working, and I wanna make sure all the residents have the opportunity to hear this. At the May 19th special budget meeting, John Mills read a statement on behalf of himself, Mark Castellano, Chris Sobieski, and Tara Ramsey. One of my pet peeves is hypocrisy. The statement John read was full of hypocrisy, and I'm disgusted by it. It's so disappointing that it came from these individuals and this group of people who I thought I knew. They said in their statement that in no way, shape, or form do we condone, support, or find acceptable the words that were said at the conclusion of the May 13th Township Committee meeting. The fact is, they all condoned, supported, and accepted words and statements that criticized their opponents during their campaigns. Rick sent letters to all the residents supporting their candidacy that criticized their opponents. After Rick received positive feedback from a resident on one of the campaign letters, John sent Rick an email saying, well, when you do what is right, people take notice. So John thought what Rick was doing was right then. It's only now that one of their own, who's up for re-election this year, is being called out on his shady political actions, that they suddenly say, oh, this will not be tolerated. They were all fine with the way Rick spoke out against people who did the wrong thing before now. And I also find it outrageous that when Rick read a Facebook post that threatened our municipal building with a loaded side slinger and an armored bulldozer, Chris was visibly and audibly laughing, and none of the other township committee members said a thing. Now, when did this become okay? Do you condone, support, and accept those words? They said, our commitment to work tirelessly for this township hasn't changed. Well, let's talk about who really works tirelessly for this township. Rick works at his desk all weekend when everyone else is taking time off. He's taking care of township business. He has an extremely successful and busy legal practice, so he takes his weekends to work on township issues. Everyone always asks me, how does he find the time to do it all? And I just say he just does it. It's important to him, so he makes time on nights and weekends. He gets calls from residents at all times of the day and night, early mornings, weekends, holidays, nights, and he always either takes the call or he returns the call as soon as he can. He makes himself available to the residents 24/7. He works so hard for this community. He's trying to keep a helistop out of the township. He's working with JCP&L and the BPU to get us better coverage during power outages, and with the DOT to fix the parking problems at the post office, and that's just to name a few. He's on the phone with other elected officials, with lawyers, with executives, business owners. He's getting things done for the people of this township, and he knows how to get things done. When the solar company who put the solar field on Route 604 wasn't living up to their obligations, and it was affecting the quality of life of one of our elderly residents, he went back into the files, read every document, and made sure they complied with what they were obligated to do. And he inherited that problem. The previous township committee couldn't get anywhere with it, but Rick got it done. You know, sometimes it takes a strong personality to handle certain issues. I know there have been many times when both residents and other township committee members have come to Rick to handle the difficult problems. He's very skilled at what he does, and this township is so lucky to have him as mayor. Now, I want to read a quote from one of our previous mayors, Tim Matthews, from a township committee meeting on March 14th, 2019. This is what Tim said about Rick. He said, I've sat up here, this is my 8th year sitting up here, and I've never seen more dedication of a township committee member than Mr. Wolf. If you look at the body of work this man has produced in a short tenure on this township committee so far, it's astounding. I've seen other township committees of both parties on this day, as myself included, who hasn't done 10% of the work that Mr. Wolf has done. So for anyone who criticizes him, you ought to think about what you have. You have a person who doesn't need to do this. He's very successful. He's a model in his profession, an excellent attorney. He runs circles around most of the attorneys we've hired in this town to do work for us.
I've had the privilege and honor of reviewing documents, editing documents, and working with documents that he's written, and it's just an amazing, amazing effort. He leads by example. I'm a business person, and one of my biggest mentors always said, results, not excuses. And I live by that mantra in my business world, and I just have to say, look at the results. He goes on to say, I'm going to continue to support Mr. Wolf throughout his tenure on this township committee, and I'm going to be his #1 fan, knocking on doors, because this is what you need in government. You need people who follow the law and do the right thing. And to that, Chris Sobieski said, I agree with Tim 100%. I just want to put that on the record. Now that was a quote from Tim. Now I want to challenge any of you to find anyone who works harder than Rick for the residents of this township. He actually does work tirelessly for this township. He doesn't just say the words. In addition to being on the township committee and being mayor, Rick is on the planning board, FOSPEC, and the recycling committee. He works at every recycling depot and attends most township events. He does all this because he loves being mayor of East Amwell. He loves helping the residents and making things better for them. He loves East Amwell, we both do. We built our forever home here and plan on being here, God willing, for a very long time. He puts his heart and soul into this township and doing what's best for the residents. That's why when someone comes along and is putting themselves, their personal political aspirations, or their political party first, and not acting in the best interest of the entire community, he gets upset, and yeah, maybe not so nice, and he calls them out. Rick was the one who started the mayor's acknowledgements at the township committee meetings to show appreciation for individuals or groups who have gone above and beyond it for the township. He's the first one to thank people or acknowledge an accomplishment. He's quick to help out or to donate when there's a need. I'd like to know why those video clips aren't blasted out by the Facebook warriors. A lot of people appreciate that Rick is honest and stands up for what's right. Residents will often come up to him when we're out and tell him how much they appreciate what he's doing for the township. The residents deserve to know what's really going on, the good and the bad. That's what happened at the May 13th meeting. He was calling out the bad. I think you should all be embarrassed by that statement that you made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Francis, you have to wait till the next.
Sure.
You've used your 10 minutes. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda items. We have 2, they're listed here. If anybody wants to discuss, we have to extract them from the consent agenda item list. Could I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda item list?
So moved.
I'll second it.
I guess you just take the roll call.
Yeah, Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes. Okay, item 15 on the agenda, resolutions. We discussed this last month. We're looking to a resolution to approve the establishment of the tax refund policy for permanently and totally disabled veterans. Could I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have no ordinance that we're introducing tonight. We have no unfinished or new business, so I guess we're open to the public again. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Francis?
Okay. So Francis Gaffian, 123 Wardsville Road, Ringgoes, New Jersey. I didn't prepare a deposition or anything like that for this, but I do happen to have the last part of the May.
It's not, you don't do it for money.
This is Darcy with part of her plea for why the tax should be increased. Darcy, parents.
It's just a respect thing. You have to give us the respect and keep getting calls from other people in other counties saying, what the heck is going on in East Amwell with the farm project? It's kind
Among
of
other
embarrassing.
things.
So that's all I'm asking for is transparency. I don't need comments. I'm not here for comments. I'm not looking to start a fight. I just want what his family has busted their butt for, what the little guy growing tulips is busting
Gonna
his butt
jump this
for.
about.
Intimidating people to try to get your way.
Ah, here we go. Now, this was after the meeting ended.
Kid Christopherly, you can watch the 3-hour video, haha, Bench was a superstar, referring to the 3-hour video of our meeting.
Yeah.
Jeff Spencer Jr., Kid Christopherly, should I load up the side slinger and head for Town Hall?
That's a manure spreader, by the
Kid
way.
responds, I would say Town Hall, but I probably have a few other locations for you. Jeff Spencer, Kid Christopherly, time to armor the bulldozer. Kid Christopherly, yes. Andrew Van Doren, Van Doren Welding LLC specializes in heavy equipment repair and armament. Now, you're
These were
laughing about
private
that. If you think
Facebook
that's funny, you think that's a
communications.
joke.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was out of frustration. We were very frustrated that night. So,
That just says to me that you're tone deaf.
yeah.
You don't get it.
Okay.
In this day and age, saying things like that intimidates people.
Mhm.
It scares people.
Okay.
Talking about arming a bulldozer.
Oh, God.
A lot of people don't know what a side slinger is, and they're thinking it's a firearm. That you're talking about coming and shooting people.
Okay.
You think that's a joke. You think that's funny. You know what? It's not a joke. It's not funny. Scaring people isn't funny.
This is
Intimidating
typical
people to try to get
interactions
your
with
way
the
isn't
public.
funny.
It wasn't
That's
intimidating
why
anybody.
these small
We were
farmers
joking around with our
don't
friends.
speak. We are closed to the public.
He's trying
That's why the
Yeah.
small farmers won't come in and speak. Because they're concerned what you might do to them.
Yeah.
So if you want to know why they're not coming in, why you're not seeing transparency, look in a mirror.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
No, we're closed to the public.
Can we talk about the comments that your wife put on Facebook?
Yes,
Let's talk about them.
read them.
You want me to read them?
Read them.
I got it.
Well, they're not even
Read
between,
the comments. Read them.
it wasn't my text exchange.
If it was about me, I can.
Okay, read them.
I can read. I just.
Third grade.
I'm happy to read the comments that my wife put on Facebook.
To me, it sounds like you're supporting businesses in exchange for votes. And that was confirmed by your wife by her text exchange.
Oh my God.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
You don't have Facebook.
Read her the case.
I have Facebook.
She can read you. She has them. She could read them verbatim. You can look over your shoulder.
Yeah, can we shut this down? Because this is really inappropriate.
You opened
You
it.
brought it up.
You opened it. Now I'm calling you out. You want to shut it
You
down.
wanted to talk about what I was.
You want to talk
discussing with
about
Scott
what
Hahn.
I posted?
Well, let's talk
Talk about
offline.
it.
Let's
Let's
talk.
talk, wait, you wanted
The
to talk
meeting's
about.
closed, so we'll talk offline.
You wanted to talk about what my
No, Kat, let it
conversation
go.
with
The
Scott
meeting's
Hahn,
closed.
okay?
She doesn't want to hear what you have
So
to
what
say.
happened was, at the
Kat, let it go.
Let it go?
Let it go for now. Let it go.
That's really hypocritical.
Let it go. She
Because I'm
raised it,
happy to
doesn't
talk
want you to
about it.
talk about it.
And I don't see Scott here, he was the one who wanted to talk about it at an open meeting. and
We have a motion to approve the bills, please.
I move we approve the bills.
Second.
second.
All in favor?
I have Delano, but Mr. Catalano.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey. Yes. Mr. Sodiaki.
About to close, and that's when the fireworks start.
Correspondence is noted. I move we adjourn.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the administrative reports?
How are all these
Can I get a motion?
so it might be.
Second.
I don't think I want to put the
bulldozer to the small
farms. Just saying. We don't need them. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Okay, so it's closed.
Yeah.
The camera was turned off. I didn't even know the recorder was still going. Chris was getting ready to leave, I believe. goes.
That he failed the bar, finally passing it.
You know it's true, Chris. You know you said that. He said it to me right after he talked to you. And then he talked to your friend. And he told you you're next door neighbor. He knows this. Everybody knows that that's what
You
you're
should be
doing.
disgusted with yourself. You're a 50-something-year-old man and you're going after a kid. You know what, I bust my ass.
You are a kid.
Oh,
You
you're a
are an
kid?
immature
You're a
little
kid?
punk kid.
You're a
You hit it
kid?
right on the head. You are lazy.
I'm lazy.
You're a liar.
I'm a liar.
Absolutely. You just lied to your right out of your teeth tonight.
Oh, yeah. I lied out of my teeth.
You don't even get out of bed till noon. You live with your parents. You don't have a real job. You spent 8 years in school. You have no job.
You have no job.
You have no job. You're a glorified secretary after 8 years of school.
I'm a deputy.
You failed the bar exam.
Man, thank you for growing up
You're not
there.
the zoning officer. You're an assistant to the zoning officer.
Deputy's on fire.
Oh, you're an assistant to the zoning officer. You have no job. Go home and hang out with your mom till 4 o'clock in the morning playing video games.
Oh, God.
Have a nice night.
You know it's true.
Here comes the part that goes after John.
I apologize.
You know what, John?
Not supposed to be.
You know what, John? I really regret all the time and money I put into getting people
I'm
elected.
apologizing
Start
because of
recording.
your husband's behavior
Yeah, no,
and yours.
oh, yeah?
We have people in the room here. Kathy?
It's a public meeting. They're allowed to hear it.
Good night, folks.
Do you want me to smile? It's okay.
Didn't know it was possible.
This is my first meeting. Welcome to East Amwell. I got it. Thanks.
That pretty much wraps it up.
So when are we gonna have a fundraiser for Chris Sobieski?
Anyway, needless to say, it's embarrassing to East Amwell Township. It's embarrassing to those of you who had to just listen to this. To those of you out there in Facebook land or wherever you are, you know, be careful. This is smiling faces usually have something up their sleeve. The majority of the 4 out of the 5 committee people that I'm facing here, and I think a lawyer, but you guys are always a little hard to read, have the decency to be embarrassed by hearing this. As residents, I think we need to be energized by hearing of this. For the last 3, 4, 5 months, the farmers and other residents who have been coming out or who are watching as we speak now are paying attention. You know, and don't believe that lying less was converted last month for a handful of phrases over how much he's contributed to East Amwell. Enough is enough. Find some way to stop this stuff. If necessary, put something in his bottle of water. That's it.
Put something in his bottle of water.
Yeah, like Valium, something.
That's very constructive, Francis. Anyone else from the public like to speak? Could I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval of the bills of the evening.
I looked at them, they look good. I don't know if you guys took a look, but they look the same as they always do.
Could I have a motion to approve the bills of the evening?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Mr. Castellano?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes. The administrative reports, which were,
Yeah, just note that there
Some of
was
them are
no
in the Google
tax
Drive.
collector or state police. Tax collector, she had to do adjustments, so it wasn't done in time, but she'll have one for next month.
okay. Could I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? I did take a careful look at the DPW report, and the vast majority of their time was working on the roads. Pretty much the rest of it was taking care of the park and the municipal building. They seem to be very busy. Can I have a motion to, I guess, yes. Could I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
You know, all in favor.
Oh,
You did
all
that,
in
right?
favor?
Yeah, you're done.
We just did it.
You're
Yeah,
good.
you just
Okay.
did.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, yeah.
Do we need a motion to approve the correspondence?
think so.
I don't think so.
Just another.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
A second.